Picture this. You're sitting across from your girlfriend or wife and the conversation feels off. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't say anything outrageous. In fact, she sounded calm, maybe even sweet. But you walk away from that talk feeling confused, guilty, and strangely compliant. You're doing things you never agreed to. You're sacrificing your priorities, your time, your peace, and you don't even know how it happened. Ever been there? You think you're making your own decisions. You think you're being a good man, a supportive partner. But what if I told you you're not in control at all? What if I told you that the words she says, the way she says them, even her silence, is part of a system designed to influence you, gently at first, then completely? See, we've been trained, programmed, to believe that manipulation is loud and obvious, that control looks like aggression, threats, or domination. But the truth? The most powerful manipulation isn't loud. It's silent. It's subtle. It hides behind concern, behind vulnerability, behind logic and love. It whispers, not shouts, and men fall for it every single day. Today, I'm going to expose what most people won't. I'm going to break down the 7 most subtle manipulation tactics women use to control men. Tactics so embedded in our culture, you probably don't even recognize them as manipulation. These are psychological tricks that bypass logic and go straight to your instincts, hijacking your need for respect, your drive to protect, and your deepest insecurities. And if you don't learn to recognize them, they will run your life. I'm not saying all women do this consciously, but the tactics are real. They're everywhere. And the moment you see them for what they are, you take back your power. You stop being the puppet, and you become the man you were meant to be. Let's start with the most common and dangerous form of manipulation. The innocent victim play. You know the one. She makes a mistake. She crosses a line. She disrespects you. But when you call it out, suddenly she's crying. She didn't mean it. She's just stressed. You misunderstood her, and now you're the bad guy for even bringing it up. You went in with a legitimate complaint, and you left apologizing. How does that happen? Simple. Women have learned that vulnerability disarms men. When she shows weakness, your brain switches gears. Your protective instinct kicks in. You feel like the aggressor, even when you're the one being mistreated. So you back down. You comfort her. You forgive too quickly. You forget the issue, and just like that, she's off the hook. It's not always tears. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's withdrawal. Sometimes it's the subtle shift in tone that makes you feel like a monster for speaking your truth. This tactic works because it flips the roles. It makes the man feel guilty for expecting accountability. It reframes disrespect as a misunderstanding. It rewrites the story, and you're cast as the villain. But you need to understand, manipulation doesn't require lies. It just requires emotional leverage. And most men never realize they're being outplayed. The second tactic is equally powerful, shifting expectations over time. This one doesn't hit you all at once, it creeps. You meet her and she's sweet, flexible, easygoing. She admires your ambition. She respects your independence. You feel like a king, but slowly, almost imperceptibly, things begin to change. Suddenly she wants more of your time. She needs more of your attention, that weekly night with the boys. Why do you need that anyway? Your gym sessions, your hobbies, your alone time, it all starts to feel like a betrayal to her. But she never yells, she never demands, she just makes you feel guilty for living your life. She'll say things like, "I just miss you," or "It feels like I'm not a priority." And of course, being the decent man you are, you adjust, you compromise, you cut back, you give in. But here's the trap. She's not adjusting with you. She's not compromising. Her expectations are expanding. Yours are shrinking. And without realizing it, you've abandoned the very things that made you attractive in the first place. This is manipulation through emotional conditioning. She creates a reward system. Compliance equals peace, affection, and praise. Resistance equals coldness, guilt trips, and subtle emotional distance. And because most men crave harmony in their relationships, they fold. But here's the brutal truth. Every time you surrender a piece of yourself to keep the peace, you lose respect, in her eyes and your own. You don't notice it right away. In fact, she might praise you for being understanding or mature, but underneath, she's testing boundaries. And with every line you let her cross, you teach her that your needs are negotiable, your time is flexible, your backbone is optional. And that's exactly how control is established, not through force, but through erosion. Parte 3 de 8. Now let's talk about the third tactic, weaponized praise and comparison. This one is stealthy. It feels good at first. She compliments you, calls you amazing, supportive, strong. You feel seen, appreciated. But then she introduces a comparison. My friend's husband always plans the most thoughtful dates, but you're still great. My ex used to always know how to comfort me when I was down, but I guess everyone's different. You're amazing. I just wish you'd be a little more like my dad when it comes to stability. It seems harmless, it's wrapped in praise, but it plants a seed of inadequacy. It suggests that your value is conditional, tied to some standard you weren't even aware of. And because the compliment is there, you don't even feel the knife until much later. What she's doing is calibrating your behavior. She's installing performance pressure. She's training you to constantly seek her validation and to fear her disappointment. This creates a cycle of anxiety. You try harder, you second-guess yourself, you become hyper-aware of her moods and needs, and over time, you stop leading, you start performing. This tactic also plays on your male desire to be enough, to be the man who provides, who protects, who satisfies. But when that standard is constantly shifting, when her praise comes only with conditions, you're on a treadmill, running hard, getting nowhere. Eventually, you're not acting out of love, you're acting out of fear. Fear of not measuring up, fear of being replaced, fear of not being the one. And here's the irony. The more you chase her approval, the less she respects you, because deep down, even she knows that love shouldn't feel like a performance review. Let's move into the fourth manipulation tactic, strategic withholding. This one is cruel because it operates in silence. There's no argument, no fight, no name-calling, just absence, emotional absence, physical absence, intimacy withheld like a reward, affection rationed like currency, and it's almost always framed as your fault. She's not in the mood, she's tired, she doesn't feel close lately, and when you ask what's wrong, nothing. But the atmosphere says otherwise. She stops touching you, stops complimenting you. The sex dries up, the tone changes, and yet she doesn't leave. She stays. She just disengages. And now you're living in a relationship where you feel alone in the same room. This is one of the most powerful forms of psychological control because it preys on a man's deepest need to feel desired, not just sexually, but emotionally, to feel chosen, seen, valued. When that disappears, most men panic. They don't get angry, they get desperate. They start trying harder, doing more, fixing things that were never broken, begging for scraps of attention from a woman who once gave it freely. This puts her in the driver's seat. Now she dictates the pace of emotional connection. She decides when you get affection, when you deserve intimacy, and the more she withholds, the more power she gains. It's the classic intermittent reward system used in casinos, cults, and toxic relationships, and it works. You start chasing the version of her that once loved you, the version she only shows in flashes. You think if you just get it right, she'll come back. But that's the trap. She doesn't want to leave. She wants to keep you chasing. And here's the kicker. If you ever mirror her behavior, if you pull back, if you go cold, she'll accuse you of emotional abuse. She'll act like you're the one being distant, detached, cruel. That's the double standard. Her silence is self-care. Yours is punishment. Her boundaries are empowerment. Yours are rejection. It's not fair. It's not balanced. It's control. The fifth tactic is the use of feigned confusion and selective memory. This one's infuriating, and every man who's been in a long-term relationship knows exactly what I'm talking about. You bring up something she said, clear as day. You quote her word for word, and she looks at you like you're crazy. "I never said that," or "You're twisting my words," or the classic, "That's not what I meant." She didn't forget. She's not confused. She's reframing. She's rewriting history to escape accountability. And here's the genius of this tactic. It makes you doubt yourself. You start second-guessing what you heard, what you remember, your own instincts. This is gaslighting in its most refined form. It doesn't explode, it erodes. Over time, it eats away at your confidence, your sense of truth, your emotional footing. You begin to question your perception of reality. You start walking on eggshells, unsure of how anything will be received. And in that uncertainty, she gains power. Because here's the brutal truth. When a woman can make you doubt your own memory, your own voice, your own judgment, she owns you. And don't think it's limited to words. This tactic can apply to promises, boundaries, past arguments. She'll say she agreed to something, then later claim she never did. She'll deny behaviors you know you saw. And if you confront her, she'll cry or deflect or flip the script to make you the aggressor. It's not about truth. It's about control of the narrative. And if she controls the narrative, she controls you. Now let's talk about the sixth manipulation tactic, proxy enforcement. This is when she doesn't directly confront you. She gets others to do it for her. You have an argument. Maybe she feels disrespected. Maybe you set a boundary she doesn't like, but instead of dealing with it directly, she tells her friends, her mother, her therapist, her social media followers. And suddenly, you're getting the cold shoulder from people you barely know. You're being judged by a jury you never agreed to face. She has mobilized her network to pressure you. This tactic is especially common in marriages. One minute you're having a private disagreement. The next, her family's calling you selfish. Her best friend is giving you the stink eye. Your mutual friends are acting weird. She's creating social leverage. She's outsourcing shame. And it works because men are social creatures too. We care what others think. We don't want to be cast as the bad guy. And when enough people start questioning your character, you start questioning yourself. But let's be clear, this isn't about resolving conflict. It's about overpowering you with consensus, about surrounding you with voices that echo hers, about making you feel isolated and outnumbered in your own life. This is emotional warfare through reputation sabotage. It's covert control. And the worst part? If you fight back, if you defend yourself, now you're attacking her support system. You're controlling, you're paranoid. It's a trap from every angle. This is why strong men guard their boundaries fiercely. They don't allow private issues to become public ammunition. And they recognize that when someone brings a crowd to a conflict, it's not about resolution, it's about domination. Now we arrive at one of the most sinister forms of subtle manipulation. Manufactured chaos. This is when a woman creates conflict, drama, or instability not to resolve anything, but to reset power dynamics. You're finally in a good place. You're focused, productive, maybe even building momentum in your goals, and out of nowhere she starts a fight over nothing. A tone, a word, a delay in your text reply. Suddenly she's upset, distant, or explosive, and you're scrambling to fix a problem that didn't even exist yesterday. Why does this happen? Because emotional chaos is a control tactic. It destabilizes your mental state. It keeps you reactive. When you're caught in the whirlwind of her shifting emotions, you can't focus. You can't lead. You're always responding, always apologizing, always negotiating peace. She knows exactly when to stir things up. when you're gaining ground, regaining confidence, building strength. She senses when your focus shifts away from her, toward your mission, your purpose, your peace, and she interrupts it. Not because she wants resolution, but because she wants control over your emotional climate. The genius of this manipulation is that it appears spontaneous. You tell yourself she's just emotional, but if you zoom out, if you start tracking the pattern, you'll see it always happens when you're leveling up, when you're not as available, when you're not as compliant, when you're pulling away from her orbit. It's no accident. It's sabotage disguised as sensitivity, and it's devastatingly effective. Because once again, you're off your path. You're back in her world, trying to decode her feelings, calm her storms, earn back her warmth. But here's the deeper truth most men miss. Peace is power. When you lose your inner peace, you become easy to lead. And that's why manufactured chaos is a favorite tool of manipulators. Because it doesn't destroy you, it just distracts you from your purpose, from your progress, from your self-respect. So let's take a breath and look at the bigger picture. These tactics, playing the victim, shifting expectations, conditional praise, emotional withholding, gaslighting, proxy enforcement, and manufactured chaos, they aren't random. They form a system, a psychological maze, a slow erosion of a man's clarity, confidence, and control. And they don't need to be aggressive. In fact, the more subtle they are, the more effective they become. Because when a man doesn't know he's being manipulated, he can't fight back. He doesn't even know there's a war. He thinks he's growing, maturing, compromising, being a better man. But what's really happening is that he's being molded, shaped, softened, until there's nothing left of the man he used to be. Just a hollow, compliant version who trades truth for comfort, strength for peace, purpose for approval. And let me be clear, this isn't about hating women. This isn't about blaming them for everything. It's about recognizing that men have been conditioned to ignore manipulation when it's wrapped in femininity. We're taught to see aggression as toxic, but submission as noble, even when that submission is slowly killing us. This is your wake-up call. You are not crazy for feeling drained, lost, or constantly off balance in your relationship. You're not weak for wanting respect, consistency, or clarity. You're not controlling for setting boundaries, protecting your time, or demanding honesty. You're a man, and your instincts are valid. The moment you start seeing these tactics for what they are, tools of control disguised as emotion, you begin to take your power back. You stop reacting. You stop explaining yourself to people who twist your words. You stop apologizing for wanting peace. And you start leading. Because here's the truth. The man who can't be manipulated is the man who knows his worth. He doesn't chase approval. He doesn't trade his integrity for intimacy. He doesn't shrink to fit someone else's narrative. He stands firm, calm, clear. And when a woman realizes she can't control you, she'll either rise to meet you or she'll leave. Either way, you win. So choose clarity over confusion. Choose strength over submission. Choose truth over comfort. Because the world doesn't need more controlled men. It needs more conscious ones. And that starts with you today.